Commander Lee Jin-ho felt the coffee cup tremble in his hand as the emergency alarms echoed through Lunar Base's command center. The holographic projector in the center of the room hummed to life, casting an eerie blue glow across the faces of his officers. This wasn't a drill. After 3 days of intercepted alien chatter and strange energy signatures at the edge of human space, they finally had their answer. The transmission that appeared before them was unlike anything humanity had ever received. 12 distinct alien voices, merged into one synthesized message, each species lending their authority to what could only be described as an ultimatum. The hologram showed representatives from across the galaxy, towering crystalline beings whose bodies refracted light like living diamonds, sleek reptilian creatures with 4 arms and silver scales, and mechanical entities whose glowing eyes pulsed with cold intelligence. "Humans of Earth," the combined voice declared with the weight of civilizations behind it, "you have expanded beyond your designated boundaries. Your colonies disrupt established trade routes. Your fleet threatens regional stability. You have 72 hours to surrender all military assets, abandon your outer settlements, and accept protectorate status under hegemony authority." Captain Park Subin nearly dropped her data pad. Around the communication center, junior officers stopped their work to stare at the hologram. The silence was deafening. In 23 years of military service, Jin-ho had never seen his crew look so stunned. "This has to be some kind of joke," whispered Lieutenant Kim Min-ho from his sensor station. "Designated boundaries? We never agreed to any boundaries." Subin turned to Jin-ho, her voice barely steady. "Sir, should we relay this to the colonies? The outer settlements need to know what's happening." Jin-ho set down his coffee cup and straightened his uniform. His mind raced through the implications. Humanity had been exploring and colonizing space for over a century. They'd encountered dozens of alien species, established trade relationships, shared technology, and built a network of peaceful coexistence. Or so they thought. "Send it everywhere," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Every ship, every station, every settlement from here to the Kepler colonies, they need to know what we're facing. And patch me through to Earth Command immediately." The hologram continued its message with chilling certainty. "Your species has grown too quickly. Your expansion patterns show aggressive intent. Your military capabilities exceed acceptable parameters for a developing civilization. The Hegemony Council has voted unanimously. Humanity must be contained." Subin's fingers flew across her control panel, establishing quantum communication links across human space. On her screen, Jin-ho could see the network lighting up. Colonies on distant worlds, mining stations in asteroid belts, exploration vessels at the edge of known space, all receiving the same terrifying message. "Compliance ensures survival." The alien voices concluded with casual certainty that made Jin-ho's blood run cold. "Resistance ensures extinction. Choose wisely. You have 72 hours. As the transmission ended, the communications center fell silent except for the hum of machinery and the distant sound of Lunar Base's life support systems. Jin-ho walked to the observation window, his boots echoing on the metal floor. Below them, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, peaceful and beautiful. Somewhere out there beyond the asteroid belt, humanity's children were building new worlds, discovering new technologies, and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. "Sir," Subin said quietly, her voice cutting through his thoughts, "the long-range sensors are picking up something. Multiple fleet formations departing from 12 different star systems. The energy signatures are massive." Jin-ho felt his stomach drop. "Show me." The holographic display shifted to show a tactical map of the local galactic region. Red dots appeared across the screen, each representing alien fleets moving toward human space. The numbers were staggering, hundreds of ships, some larger than anything humanity had ever built. "They're not waiting for our answer," Jin-ho realized with growing dread. "They've already decided war is inevitable." Lieutenant Kim looked up from his station, his face pale. "Sir, I'm reading displacement signatures that suggest some kind of gravity manipulation technology. These aren't conventional drives. They're moving faster than anything we've seen before." Jin-ho studied the tactical display. The alien fleets were approaching from multiple directions, coordinating their movements with military precision. This wasn't a show of force or a negotiation tactic. This was a full-scale invasion already in motion. "How long until the first fleets reach our outer colonies?" he asked. "At their current speed, approximately 18 hours, Subin replied, her voice tight with tension. Jinho closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of the families on those distant worlds, children playing in alien dirt under foreign suns, scientists making discoveries that could benefit all of humanity, farmers growing crops that would feed millions, all of them now in deadly danger. The communication board lit up as responses, began flooding in from across human space. Colony administrators demanding explanations, fleet commanders requesting orders, civilian transports asking for evacuation routes. The 72-hour ultimatum suddenly seemed like a cruel joke when the enemy was already moving. "Get me Admiral Kim on priority channel," Jinho ordered, "and start calculating jump routes for emergency evacuation protocols. If they want war, we need to be ready." The emergency session hall on Lunar Base had never seen anything like this. Holographic projectors filled the circular chamber with flickering images of humanity's greatest leaders, their faces grim as they materialized from across the galaxy. Admiral Kim Tae-young stood at the center podium, watching as representatives from every corner of human space joined the quantum link conference that would decide their species' fate. The first to speak was Counselor Choi Min-seo, her image wavering slightly as the quantum signal traveled from the Proxima Centauri colonies. Her settlement had grown from a small research outpost to a thriving world of 3 million people over the past 50 years. Now, faced with the hegemony's ultimatum, her voice carried the weight of those lives. "We have to be realistic here," she said, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "The hegemony has superior numbers. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. I've seen the tactical reports. Some of their ships are the size of small cities. Surrender might be our only option for survival." A chorus of angry voices erupted from around the chamber. Captain Han Woo-jin's projection flickered as he leaned forward from the bridge of his deep space exploration vessel, the Horizon Walker. His ship had been mapping uncharted systems when the emergency recall came through, and his crew had seen firsthand what hegemony technology could do. "Survival as what?" he countered, his voice sharp. "Slaves? Servants? Look at what they're demanding. Complete surrender of our military, abandonment of our colonies, acceptance of their rule. They're not offering coexistence. They're demanding subjugation." Dr. Yoon Hye-jin rose slowly from her seat, her image transmitted from the research station orbiting Kepler 452b. For 15 years, she had studied alien cultures and societies, documenting their histories, their languages, their ways of life. What she had learned about the hegemony chilled her to the bone. "I've studied their species for years," she said quietly, her words carrying across the chamber like a death sentence. "The hegemony doesn't just conquer territories or resources. They absorb entire civilizations. Within a generation, human culture, human identity, human independence would be extinct. They call it peaceful integration, but it's nothing more than cultural genocide." The debate that followed was unlike anything in human political history. Governor Park Seung-ho from the Mars colonies argued for immediate negotiation, believing they could find middle ground. Admiral Song Yeon-woo from the Jupiter Defense Fleet presented tactical analyses showing humanity's military disadvantages. Scientist Lee Byung-hun from the Outer Rim research stations shared intelligence about hegemony weapons that could crack planets. As the hours passed, the arguments grew more heated. Some representatives advocated for selective resistance, defending only the most important colonies, while abandoning the frontier settlements. Others proposed hiding humanity's most advanced technology and playing weak until they could find advantages. A few even suggested fragmenting human civilization, scattering to the far reaches of space where the hegemony might not follow. But then the reports started coming in. Lieutenant Commander Nam Ji-hai's voice crackled through the communication. "System from the outer sensor network. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures. The hegemony fleets aren't just moving toward our space. They're deploying. Battle formations, weapon charging sequences, boarding craft launching from their larger vessels. The chamber fell silent as the tactical display updated in real time. Red icons representing alien fleets were now clearly moving in coordinated attack patterns toward human colonies. The 18-hour estimate had been optimistic. Advanced scouts were already probing the defenses of humanity's outer settlements. Captain Bei-In-Su from the cargo hauler New Seoul transmitted an emergency signal. "They're not waiting for our answer. My ship just detected alien fighters conducting reconnaissance of the Vega colonies. This isn't a negotiation. It's a countdown to invasion." The mood in the chamber shifted like a breaking dam. The representatives who had argued for surrender began to see the truth. The hegemony had already made their decision. The 72, our ultimatum was nothing more than theater, a way to justify what they were already planning to do. Dr. Yoon spoke again, her voice carrying new urgency. "I've seen this pattern before in their historical records. The ultimatum, the impossible, demands the fleet movements during negotiations. They did this to the Arcturus coalition 50 years ago. The coalition chose surrender, accepted protectorate status, agreed to all demands. Within 2 years, their government was dissolved, their military disbanded, their people relocated to labor colonies. Today, you can't find a single Arcturian who remembers their original language." Admiral Kim listened to the debate with growing resolve. Around him, the holographic faces of humanity's leaders reflected fear, anger, determination, and desperation. These were people who had spent their lives building something incredible, a spacefaring civilization that had spread across dozens of star systems, establishing trade networks, scientific research stations, and thriving colonies where human culture could flourish. "They gave us a choice," Admiral Kim said finally, his voice cutting through the arguments like a blade. The chamber fell silent. "But they made it while their guns were already aimed at our heads. This isn't a negotiation. It's a demand for unconditional surrender disguised as diplomacy." He looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's representatives. "I call for a vote, all in favor of accepting the hegemony's terms." Not a single hand was raised. "All in favor of resistance?" Every hand in the chamber rose as one. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Kim activated the recording system, his voice steady and cold as ice. "To the Hegemony Council, you demanded our surrender, before we could even respond. You moved your fleets while speaking of choice. You have shown us exactly what your peace means. Our answer is simple. We choose war. You will learn why Earth's children bow to no one." The message was broadcast across human space first, reaching every colony, every ship, every station where humans lived and worked. Then it was transmitted directly to the approaching hegemony fleets, carried by quantum communication arrays toward the alien armadas that thought they were about to crush a primitive species. Humanity had made their choice. Now the galaxy would see what that choice meant. The hegemony's first fleet dropped out of hyperspace, like a storm cloud descending on Kepler 442b. Colony Administrator Seo Kyung-mi stood on the observation deck of New Busan Station, watching as alien warships materialized against the starfield. The massive vessels were beautiful in their own terrifying way. Sleek silver hulls that seemed to bend light around them, energy weapons that glowed like captured lightning, and shield generators that made the space around them shimmer like heat waves. The largest ship alone was 3 times the size of humanity's biggest space station. Its hull bristled with weapon batteries and launch bays, while smaller escort vessels moved around it like deadly fish swimming in formation. Kyung-mi had seen the intelligence reports, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of facing such overwhelming force. "Colony Administrator," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel." The alien voice that filled the station's command center was cold and mechanical, translated by their universal language processors. "Human settlement of Kepler 442b. You are in violation of hegemony space regulations. Surrender now, and you will be relocated safely to designated zones. Resistance will result in termination." Kyung-mi looked around at her staff, engineers who had spent years terraforming this world, farmers who had coaxed crops from alien soil, families who had made this distant planet their home. Behind her, through the station's reinforced windows, she could see the colony sprawling across the valley below. Green fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with homes, schools, and the small factories that had made their settlement self-sufficient. "Sir," her aide whispered urgently, "we should respond. They're powering up their weapons." Kyung-mi walked to the communication console and placed her hand on the activation switch. For a moment she thought about her daughter playing in the colony's gardens, about the children learning in their schools, about the dreams that had brought 30,000 humans to this world. Her response was to activate Protocol 7, the colony's final defense plan that every human settlement had prepared since the war began. Emergency sirens wailed across New Busan as civilians rushed to predetermined positions. This wasn't an evacuation, it was a transformation. The mining equipment that had carved mountains suddenly became artillery batteries. Massive earth movers were fitted with armor plating and makeshift weapons. The farming mechs that harvested crops were converted into mobile weapons platforms, their harvesting arms replaced with mining lasers and industrial cutters. When the first hegemony dropships descended through the atmosphere, trailing fire and energy shields, they expected to find helpless colonists. Instead, they flew into a storm of improvised anti-aircraft fire. Crop dusters loaded with explosive chemicals rammed into alien transports. Construction drones swarmed the landing craft like angry insects, their welding torches and cutting tools turned into weapons. The first alien troops to touch ground found themselves facing not terrified civilians, but a fortress. Every building had been reinforced, every street turned into a kill zone. The humans had spent months preparing for this moment, turning their peaceful colony into a death trap. Lieutenant Zakthor of the Hegemony Marines had conquered 17 worlds, but nothing had prepared him for what he found in the colony's main settlement. The humans used everything as weapons: kitchen knives welded to farming tools, household chemicals mixed into explosives, even children's toys rigged with mining charges. They fought from sewers and rooftops, disappearing into tunnel networks. They had carved beneath their cities. Above the planet, Captain Bae Dong-hyun's small patrol fleet engaged the massive hegemony warships in a running battle among the asteroid fields. His 3 destroyers and 2 frigates were hopelessly outgunned, but they fought with desperate creativity that caught the aliens off guard. "Target their sensor arrays," Bae ordered, as his flagship, the Incheon, weaved between asteroids the size of buildings. "If we can't match their firepower, we'll blind them." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Park Young-sik, had loaded their torpedo tubes with mining charges scavenged from the asteroid belt. These weren't military weapons, but they didn't need to be. When a mining charge designed to crack asteroids hit an alien ship's hull, the results were devastating. The hegemony vessels were built for traditional space combat, ship against ship in open space, following established battle doctrines that had worked for centuries. They weren't prepared for humans who used cargo containers as improvised missiles, who rammed damaged ships into enemy formations, who turned debris fields into weapon stores. Bae's ship shuddered as alien plasma bolts tore through its armor, but he kept fighting. When his engines were damaged, he used the ship's momentum to coast toward an enemy vessel, firing everything he had at point-blank range. When his weapons ran out of ammunition, he loaded the torpedo tubes with anything that would explode. Fuel cells, oxygen tanks, even the ship's emergency supplies. The battle lasted 3 days. The humans fought street by street, building by building, making the aliens pay for every meter of ground. When New Busan's main power plant was about to fall, the defenders rigged it to explode, taking out 2 companies of hegemony troops. When their ammunition ran low, they fashioned new weapons from wreckage and debris. In the end, the colony fell. The hegemony's superior numbers and technology prevailed, but at a cost they had never expected. Nearly 40% of their landing force was destroyed or wounded. 6 of their escort ships were damaged beyond repair. Their casualty reports read like disasters, not victories. Admiral Vextar studied the battle reports in his command chamber, his 4 eyes scanning the data with growing unease. His species, the Kethmori, had been warriors for 1,000 years, but they had never seen anything like this. "These humans," he said to his aide, his translated voice carrying confusion and concern, "they fight like wounded beasts. No strategy, no honor, just pure savage determination." His aide, a mechanical being whose metal face showed no emotion, replied with cold logic. Their resistance will crumble once they face our full might. This was merely one small colony. But Vextar had seen something in the battle recordings that disturbed him. The humans hadn't just fought desperately, they had adapted. Each time his forces used a new tactic, the humans found a counter. Each time they overcame one defense, the humans created two more. They learned from each engagement, modified their approach, found weaknesses in hegemony doctrine that had remained unchanged for centuries. As his fleet moved toward the next target, Vexatar couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. This wasn't going to be the easy conquest the Council had promised. 6 months into what the hegemony had promised would be a quick conquest, the war had become something entirely different. Colonel Oh Hyun-woo crouched in the ruins of Tau Ceti, Prime's capital city, watching alien patrol craft sweep the skyline through his binoculars. The hegemony had taken the planet 3 times now, and 3 times the humans had taken it back. "Sir, the next wave is coming in from the north," reported Sergeant Kim Jae-ho, his voice crackling through the comm unit. "Looks like 2 full battalions of their ground troops, plus air support." Oh smiled grimly. The aliens kept using the same playbook, massive frontal assaults with overwhelming firepower, expecting human resistance to crumble under superior technology. They had never learned to fight an enemy that refused to stay beaten. "Execute Plan 7, he ordered, "and tell the civilians in Sectors 4 and 6 to activate their surprises." What looked like abandoned apartment buildings suddenly erupted with weapons fire. The aliens had learned to expect military resistance, but they had never anticipated grandmothers with jury-rigged plasma rifles shooting from kitchen windows, or teenagers launching homemade rockets from school rooftops. Every human civilian had become a potential combatant, every building a possible fortress. The hegemony's flying gunships, sleek machines that had dominated battlefields across the galaxy, suddenly found themselves under attack from modified farming drones. These small aircraft, originally designed to spray crops, now carried explosive charges and flew kamikaze missions into alien formations. The pilots barely had time to react before swarms of these improvised weapons overwhelmed their defenses. 300 light-years away, Captain Lim Yon-soo's destroyer group played a deadly game of cat and mouse in the Vega system's asteroid belt. Her 3 ships, the Mokpo, the Ulsan, and the Gwangju, had been hunted by a hegemony task force for over 4 months, but instead of running, they had been studying their enemies with the patience of scientists and the cunning of predators. "Contact. Bearing 270, distance 4,000 kilometers, reported her sensor officer, Lieutenant Shin Hyun-sik. "It's the same heavy cruiser that's been tracking us. They're scanning the asteroids again." Lim had memorized every detail of that ship. She knew its weapon placement, its blind spots, its patrol patterns. Most importantly, she knew its weaknesses. "Wait for it," she whispered, watching the tactical display. The alien cruiser moved with the confidence of a hunter, its sensors probing. The asteroid field for signs of human ships. They had no idea they were being watched, studied, analyzed with every pass. The moment came when the cruiser's shields flickered, just for 2.7 seconds, as the generators recycled their power. Lim had timed this cycle dozens of times, waiting for the perfect opportunity. "Fire everything we have," she ordered. The Mokpo's torpedo tubes launched their full load, not at the cruiser's heavily armored front sections, but at a specific point, 17 degrees off its starboard bow, where the weapon coverage had a gap. The aliens had designed their ships to fight other ships in traditional formations, never imagining enemies who would spend months learning their weaknesses. The torpedoes struck home just as the shields powered down. The explosion tore through the cruiser's hull, crippling its engines and leaving it drifting helplessly among the asteroids. "Get me a secure channel to High Command," Lim ordered as her ship slipped back into the asteroid field. "I have some new intelligence to share." Within hours, Lim's discoveries were transmitted to every human fleet commander in the galaxy. The aliens' shield generators had a recharge cycle of 2.7 seconds. Their weapons had a 17-degree blind spot on each side. Their communications could be disrupted by targeting specific quantum frequencies. What had taken the hegemony centuries to perfect, humans had learned to counter in months. Back on Earth, Dr. Kang Sung-ho's research team worked around the clock, in their hidden laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps. The facility buzzed with activity as teams of scientists, engineers, and technicians reverse-engineered captured alien technology. Holographic displays showed complex diagrams of hegemony weapons, shield systems, and computer cores. Their quantum processors are incredible, Kang explained to his team, gesturing at the alien computer components spread across his workbench. They can process information 1,000 times faster than our best systems. But look at this. He pointed to a delicate crystalline structure at the heart of the processor. They're also incredibly fragile. One electromagnetic pulse at the right frequency and the entire system crashes. We can't build anything this sophisticated, but we don't need to. We just need to know how to break it. His assistant, Dr. Choi Young-min, looked up from her analysis. "We found similar weaknesses in their weapon systems. They're designed for maximum efficiency, but that makes them vulnerable to specific types of interference." The breakthrough came when they discovered that hegemony technology relied on quantum entanglement networks that could be disrupted by something as simple as modified mining equipment. The same industrial tools that humans use to dig tunnels and crack asteroids could jam the aliens' most advanced systems with the right modifications. Within weeks, every human settlement had instructions for building these quantum disruptors from common industrial parts. The hegemony's technological advantage, which had seemed insurmountable at the war's beginning, started to crumble as humans found creative ways to level the playing field. Hegemony Field Marshal Korth stood in his command chamber aboard the flagship Dominance, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. His species, the Thekran, had conquered 47 worlds using the same proven strategies. They had never encountered an enemy like this. "They don't follow standard military doctrine," he reported to the Hegemony Council during their emergency session. "Their formations shift constantly. They use civilian infrastructure as military assets. They turn every defeat into a learning opportunity." The council members, representing 12 different species from across the galaxy, listened with growing concern. What should have been a quick subjugation of a primitive species had become a grinding war that showed no signs of ending. "Perhaps we underestimated their capabilities," suggested Councillor Vorth, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's lights. "Their adaptation rate is unprecedented." Marshal Korth's mandibles clicked in frustration. "It's not just their adaptation. They fight with a creativity we've never encountered. They turn farming equipment into weapons, use children's toys as bombs, convert cargo ships into missiles. Every human civilian is a potential combatant." The war that the hegemony had promised would end in months stretched into its second year. Across the galaxy, other species began to take notice. The mighty hegemony, which had dominated this region of space for centuries, was being held at bay by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. In the shadows of distant worlds, representatives of oppressed civilizations whispered about the humans who refused to surrender. For the first time in generations, someone was proving that the hegemony could be fought, could be beaten, could be made to bleed. The storm that had begun as humanity's desperate resistance was growing into something that would shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. The massive hegemony warfleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol System, like a dark tide of metal and death. Over 2,000 ships stretched across space, battleships the size of small moons, carrier vessels bristling with fighter craft, and support ships loaded with enough firepower to crack planets. This was the hegemony's ultimate force, assembled from 12 different species and designed to end humanity's resistance once and for all. Admiral Kim Tae-young stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the Sol, watching the enemy fleet approach through the tactical display. Around him, his officers worked with calm efficiency, their faces showing no fear despite the overwhelming odds. Behind them, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, peaceful and beautiful. The birth world that had spawned a species the galaxy was only now beginning to understand. "Sir," reported Commander Park So-young, her fingers dancing across her control panel, "all defensive positions are ready. The asteroid belt is fully armed and waiting. Outer planet installations are at full power." Kim smiled grimly. the expression of a man who had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. Every human retreat during the war, every tactical withdrawal, every seeming defeat had been calculated. The hegemony thought they were approaching a cornered species, making a desperate final stand at their homeworld. They had never been more wrong. The alien fleet advanced with the confidence of predators approaching wounded prey. Admiral Vextar, commanding from his massive flagship, studied the tactical readings with satisfaction. The humans had pulled back their scattered forces to defend Sol System, concentrating their remaining ships around Earth like frightened animals protecting their young. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target their defensive positions first, then move on the planet itself. Show them the price of defying the hegemony." As the first wave of alien fighters swept toward the asteroid belt, expecting to clear a path for the main fleet, they flew into hell itself. What looked like empty space suddenly erupted with weapons fire from hidden installations. Asteroids that had seemed lifeless revealed themselves to be massive weapons platforms, their surfaces bristling with railguns, missile batteries, and energy weapons. The asteroid belt had become a fortress. For 3 years, human engineers had been hollowing out rocks and building them into deadly surprises. Mining equipment had been converted into weapons. Cargo haulers had become missile platforms. Even the smallest asteroids hid automated defense systems that could track and destroy incoming threats. Captain Yu Jae-min's stealth fleet emerged from behind Jupiter's moons, like ghosts materializing from the void. His ships had been waiting in the gas giant's radiation shadow, invisible to hegemony sensors. Now they struck at the alien fleet's flanks with weapons that no one in the galaxy had seen before. The experimental plasma cannons, designed by Dr. Shin Hyun-jung's research team, tore through hegemony shields like they were made of paper. These weren't the crude weapons humanity had started the war with. They were the result of 3 years of studying captured alien technology, learning from every battle, adapting and improving with each engagement. "Impossible," gasped Admiral Vextar as his flagship shuddered under human fire. "Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our shields. They were supposed to be primitives." His sensor officer, a being whose 4 eyes could process information faster than most computers, looked up from his station in panic. "Sir, their weapons are using quantum resonance frequencies that destabilize our shield matrices. They know exactly how to counter our defenses." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The hegemony fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds with overwhelming technological superiority, found themselves fighting an enemy that had learned to turn their own advantages against them. Colonel Song Hee-jin's planetary defense systems activated across the solar system. Mars revealed itself to be one massive weapons platform, its industrial complexes switching from peaceful production to weapons manufacturing in minutes. The moon bases that had seemed like simple mining operations launched swarms of fighters and missiles. Even the space stations orbiting Venus opened up with artillery that could reach across millions of kilometers. Dr. Shin's experimental weapons were everywhere. Quantum disruptors that shut down alien computer systems, gravitational mines that crushed ships like tin cans, and energy weapons that fed on the enemy's own power sources. Every piece of captured hegemony technology had been studied, reverse-engineered, and turned into something deadlier. But the real surprise came when the hegemony fleet tried to retreat. The space around Sol System suddenly filled with humanity's true fleet, not the small defensive force they had expected, but thousands of ships that had been hidden throughout the system. Some emerged from asteroid hiding places, others decloaked from behind planets, and still more jumped in from distant hiding spots beyond Pluto's orbit. The humans hadn't been retreating during the war, they had been preparing. Every defeat had taught them something new. Every captured alien ship had revealed weaknesses to exploit. Every month of fighting had made them stronger, smarter, more dangerous. Admiral Vextar watched his mighty fleet burn in the light of Earth's sun, finally, understanding the truth. These weren't the primitive upstarts the hegemony had dismissed. This was a species that had crawled out of a gravity well, learned to survive in the vacuum of space, and mastered the art of war not through conquest, but through the simple need to protect what they loved. "Send the retreat signal," he ordered, but it was too late. The human fleet had surrounded them completely. Admiral Kim's voice cut through the chaos of battle, broadcast on all frequencies, so every ship in both fleets could hear. To the hegemony forces, you came to our home expecting to find weakness. Instead, you found what happens when you threaten humanity's children. We offered you peace. You chose war. Now you know how we fight. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the once mighty hegemony fleet was scattered wreckage drifting through Sol system. Some ships had surrendered. Others had been destroyed. The few that escaped carried a message that would spread across the galaxy. Humanity was not a species to be trifled with. On distant worlds, the Hegemony Council watched the destruction of their grand fleet and finally understood their mistake. They hadn't been conquering primitives. They had been poking a sleeping dragon that had spent 3 years learning exactly how to kill them. But humanity's war had never been about conquest or territory. It had been about ensuring that no species would ever again threaten the children of Earth. As the smoke cleared and the debris was collected, every civilization in the galaxy received the same message: humanity sought peace, but they would fight with terrifying efficiency to protect it. The species that had once been dismissed as upstart primitives had proven something that would echo through galactic history. Earth's children didn't just fight to win. They fought to ensure their enemies would never threaten anyone again. The end.